Hi guys, and welcome back to the Crochet Toy YouTube channel. In today's video I'm bringing you a Danganronpa pattern, and this is for Monokuma. So here he is, and then from the back. So yeah, I've played the first two Danganronpa games and I'm currently making my way through the third one. I've been playing the third one for quite a while. I keep picking it up and then putting it back down again, but hopefully I will actually end up finishing that quite sometime soon. But anyway, I decided to make this pattern because I have actually previously made a Monokuma pattern before. So this is my old Monokuma that I made about a year ago now. But as you can see, the colour changing is a bit messy, so I wasn't too happy with it, so I actually ended up privating this pattern on my blog, and I thought I'd have another go at making one where you don't have to do colour changing for the majority of the pattern. It's actually just two halves that you're sewing together, and then the only colour changing required is just this tiny piece here for the tail. Now as you can see, the colour change is still not like a perfect line. It's a little bit wonky, as you can see here, but you know, I thought this was probably still good enough that other people might want to make this item as well. I think it's still cute. But yeah, I thought I would just put that disclaimer out at the beginning so you know that you're not going to get something that's absolutely perfect from this pattern. You know, it's got a bit of character, I suppose you could say, but yeah, like I said, I still think it's really cute. So yeah, if you still want to make this after seeing kind of how that's actually going to turn out, then do keep watching this video. The free pattern is on my blog as always, and you can just have that open while you're watching this video, or you can just follow the written instructions, although there is a bit to making the two halves for the body and the head, so I probably would recommend that you might want to watch the video to understand how all of that works, because I was struggling to kind of write it out and explain it through words rather than showing you on camera. So yeah, I would recommend watching the video. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into exactly what you'll be needing for this tutorial. For this tutorial you'll be needing aran weight yarn in black and white, and I really would recommend that you try and use the same brand for both colours if possible, because otherwise this might distort the shape of the Monokuma, because obviously we're making two halves and sewing them together. So yeah, that's just my recommendation there. Then you'll need some stuffing. You'll need a lot more than this, but this is just to demonstrate. You'll be needing felt in the following colours: red, white and black, and this is for the eyes and the face details. You'll be needing some scissors, some fabric glue to glue those felt pieces down. I use Fabri-Tac. You'll be needing your crochet hook. I'm using 4mm to go with the aran weight yarn that I have, but if you're using a heavier or lighter weight, then you might want to size up or size down as required. You'll be needing a stitch marker. I just use a scrap piece of yarn, some embroidery thread. You don't need this much, it's literally just to add the cross onto the tummy. You'll need a yarn needle for sewing everything together, and you might want to have some pins to help you keep things in place as you're sewing, but that's optional. So yep, that's everything that you'll be needing for this video. So before we start crocheting, I just want to explain to you how this is going to work, because I think it can be a little bit confusing to read the written instructions for this, and it's easier if I show you and try and explain to you what I'm doing verbally. So what I have here is one of the halves of the body. So as you can see, this is what it looks like. And basically we're going to just do the exact same thing in white now, and then we're going to join the two halves together. But yeah, I want to make one of the halves first to show you. And effectively how this works is I made a separate head piece, so this is going to be the half of the head, and then I also made a separate body piece down here, and then I started joining them together in a round, and then I did a few rounds where I had both of the pieces joined together, and I just single crocheted all the way around. So hopefully seeing this is going to make a bit more sense when I talk you through what we need to do now when I recreate this, but with the white yarn this time. So yeah, grab either of your colour yarns. It doesn't matter which one you start with, because both halves are worked in exactly the same way. And we're going to start off by making the head half. So this is quite simple. We're just going to start off by doing 6 single crochets in a magic circle. In fact, let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then for round 2, we're just going to increase in each single crochet all the way around. So that's the end of round 2, and you should now have 12 single crochets all the way around. I'm going to talk you through the remaining rounds for the head, as they're just standard increases in increments of 6. So for round 3, you're going to do single crochet increase and repeat that 5 more times to get you to 18 single crochets at the end of the round. Round 4, 2 single crochet increase, repeat that 5 more times to get you to 24 single crochets at the end of the round. Round 5, 3 single crochet increase, repeat that 5 more times to get you to 30 single crochets at the end of the round. Round 6, 4 single crochet increase, repeat that 5 more times to get you to 36 single crochets at the end of the round. Round 7, 5 single crochet increase, repeat that 5 more times to get you to 42 single crochets at the end of the round. And finally round 8, you're going to just single crochet all the way around, so I'll meet you at the end of round 8. Got to the end of round 8, and now all we need to do is cut our yarn, leaving a bit of a tail, because we're going to be using this to sew up the gap that's going to appear when we crochet the body and the head together. So I'm just going to leave, as I mentioned, a little bit of a tail here, and then that's it. So we'll be needing this a bit later, but we can put this to the side for now and we can start working on the body. So grab your white yarn again and let's do that. So the rounds for the body are a little bit more unusual. So to start off with, we're actually going to be doing 12 single crochets in a magic circle, which is not something that I would normally do, but I just found that this worked the best. I've tried a lot of different ways of making the body, and yeah, this is the preferred outcome that I did. So I'm just going to do my 12 single crochets. You might need to pull a little bit as you go along just to make a bit more room on there. Okay, so that's 12, so now I'm just going to pull that, close up that hole. Just like that. So yeah, at the end of round 1 you should have 12 single crochets. Now for round 2 we're going to do 3 single crochets. Then we're going to do 3 increases. And then we're going to repeat that once more. So we're going to do 3 single crochets. And then we're going to do 3 increases. Okay, so at the end of round 2 you should have 18 single crochets all the way around. So the remaining rounds for the body are not complicated because it is just a mixture of single crochets and increases, but they are in slightly different places than you would normally potentially expect, and this is just because we're trying to create an oval shape here rather than creating a normal circular shape. So that's why we need to place those increases in slightly different places. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to put up on screen now the next few rounds, because it will just take me ages to talk through them because of the fact that there's constantly like an increase, then a single crochet, then they're not quick ones to actually speak out loud. So you can see them on the screen now, and you can also just go onto my written pattern that's on my blog, and that's linked down below as well if you want to have that open, and you can just follow it there. But yeah, essentially, as I mentioned, it is just single crochets and increases in different patterns each round. So I'm going to meet you at the end of round 9 as I'm going to give you some guidance on how to join the body piece and the head piece together. So I'm at the end of round 9, and before we start joining the body and the head piece together, we just want to do an extra 14 single crochets, and that's just going to get us in the right position to start crocheting straight into the head. So this doesn't count as a round, this is just an extra 14 single crochets that we're doing here. Okay, so you should be somewhere near the top of this kind of oval shape now, and now we're ready to crochet into the head, so let's do that now. So before we start joining these two pieces together, you just want to make sure that the right side is facing us on both the head and the body, and then we want to make sure that we start off by working in the 5th single crochet after we completed round 8 of the head. So let's count that together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's this stitch that we're going to start working in. So we're going to do our first single crochet in that stitch, so just like this. And I am going to mark that stitch just so I remember where round 10 began. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to work 37 more single crochets around the head. So I'm just going to go around like this. And if you positioned your first single crochet correctly, then this should bring us up to this single crochet here, and it should leave 4 unworked single crochets. So I'll meet you when you have 4 single crochets left unworked on the head. So I got to the point that I mentioned before, where I have now done 38 single crochets in total around the head, and I've got 4 single crochets that I've left unworked here. And now it's time to start single crocheting into the body. So we want to leave 4 single crochets unworked on the body as well, so we can count those together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means this 5th one is the next single crochet that we're going to want to work in. So I'm just going to do a single crochet in here. So that's 1 single crochet, and then all you need to do is you just need to work 46 single crochets around the body, and that should bring you back up to your stitch marker here, and that will be the end of round 10. So I will meet you when I've finished crocheting around the body like this. So yeah, see you in a bit. So I reached the end of round 10, and at the end of the round you should have 84 single crochets all the way around, and you should have now joined your head and body together. So at this point, I mean, it's not that important that you do it at this point, but I think it's easiest maybe to do it now, is just to sew these skipped single crochets together, so we get rid of this gap, because obviously we don't want a gap between the head and the body. We want it to be all just one piece. So I'm just going to get my yarn needle at this point. I'm going to just use that to whip stitch across basically, so I'll just show you me doing that now. Pretty standard stuff. . 。 just going to remove the stitch marker so it doesn't get in my way. So now that is sewn together, there's no more gaps, and we can hide this tail later, so don't worry too much about that. I'm just going to leave it loose for now. So now that you've done that, you just want to do some rounds of single crocheting all the way around. So let me just talk you through that. So we're basically just going to do 5 total rounds of single crocheting all the way around. So that'll be rounds 11 to 15, and I'll meet you at the end of round 15 as we can then talk about how we're going to sew together the 2 halves of the body. So once you've come to the end of round 15, the final thing you're going to want to do is just do an additional 19 single crochets, and that will take you to the top of the head. So I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so that's 19, and now you want to cut your yarn, leaving a very long tail for sewing because you're going to have to sew around the whole body. And obviously you only need to leave a long tail on one of the halves that you're making. So as you can see here on this black half, I've just left a short tail because I don't need to use that for sewing. So yeah, don't need to do that on both halves. So I'm just going to cut my yarn, and then you can feed the yarn tail through like this, and then just for additional neatness, I am going to finish off with a fake single crochet on both sides, so I'll show you how to do that. So to do the fake single crochet, just turn your work, skip the next single crochet and go into the one after that, pull the yarn tail through, then go back to that final single crochet that we just did of those 19 that we did just there, and go into the front loop only but from our current perspective, and then just pull that tail back through again. And that's it. So you can see that this here is not a real single crochet, it's actually a fake one that we've just created over the existing one, and now it's less obvious where the round ended. So you just want to make sure that you do the same thing with your other half, but with the other half you can obviously knot the yarn tail and weave it inside, because you're not going to be using that for sewing at all. So once you've done that, then I will show you how to sew the 2 halves together. So now I've threaded my yarn needle and I'm going to sew the 2 halves together. Obviously make sure that you're making sure that the head is touching the head on the other side, and the body part is actually touching the body. You don't want to sew them the wrong way around like this, because then that obviously you have to redo it all again. So when we're sewing this together, what we want to do is, well, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to whip stitch all the way around, and I'm going to whip stitch in the front loops only. But when I say the front loops, I mean the actual front loops, so not just the front loops from our current perspective. So an easier way of me saying that might be that I'm going to be going into the outer loops only on both sides. And what I'm going to do is, to make sure that everything lines up properly, I know that this was the fake single crochet that I created to finish off the round in black. I'm sorry if you can't see that too well, but this is the fake single crochet. So the first crochet that I'm actually going to go into on the black side is going to be the real single crochet that's to the left of that. And then on the white side, I'm going to start off by working into that fake single crochet that we just made, and that should line everything up properly on both sides. So hopefully that made sense. But yeah, so I'm just going to be going into those outer loops only. So that's the first one that I've done, and then I'm going to do the next one. And this one. So basically you just need to do that all the way around, but before you quite get to the end, you want to stop and add some stuffing. So I'll meet you when I get to that point and show you when I've stuffed this. So I nearly finished sewing all the way around, so I've just added some stuffing at this point. You're going to want to stuff quite firmly, and you're probably going to want to keep topping it up until you get right to the end here of sewing everything around. So I'll meet you when you've finished sewing all the way around. I've sewn all the way around now, and this is what it's looking like. So it's not perfectly straight, there is still a little bit of a slant here. Yeah, I tried many different ways of doing this, and I just honestly couldn't find one that got me a perfectly straight line down the middle. But most of this this point at the front will be covered up by the white circle for the belly anyway, so you probably won't be able to tell too much when all of the other details have been added. But anyway, now I'm just going to get rid of these yarn tails that I have, so I'm just going to feed them through to another point, and then I'll just snip that, and I just will do the same with the other couple that I still have hanging around. So once you've got rid of all of the yarn tails, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the face details, and that's going to be using felt and glue. So now you want to cut your felt pieces out, and there's quite a few pieces, and obviously it's important how you kind of stack these middle pieces for the mouth, because yeah, that just affects how it looks. So I'll show you sort of the layering of all those pieces that I've made and show you all the pieces separately. I have filmed a quiet clip where I've shown you how I was cutting out this eye shape, because I know this is a bit of a weird shape, and yeah, I struggled a bit with it as well, but I think this turned out okay. So yeah, I do have a clip of that that'll play after this. And then I've also got a clip where I showed you me gluing down the black strips on the mouth. So yeah, so we have two eyes, so just one black circle and then this red weird shape that I'll show you in the next clip. Then for the nose, it's just like a rounded triangle like that. Then there needs to be like a little strip underneath the nose. You could use embroidery thread or something like that instead, but I'm using all felt for this. Then you need kind of like, I don't know how you describe this shape, but this shape. Then you need the mouth itself, so it's kind of just one side of the mouth, and then the four little strips. Again, you could use embroidery thread or something like that, but if you do use felt, I've shown you me gluing those bits down. Then you just need a black circle, and then underneath that is finally a white circle. So now I'm just going to glue all of these pieces to the face and glue them in the right order. So I'm going to glue down this first, then put this on top, then I'm going to put the teeth, then I'm going to put this thing. Obviously I'm going to do it a bit neater than this, but it's hard to film at the same time. Then I'm going to do this little strip, and then finally it's going to be the nose. So that's the order that you should be gluing things in. And then the eyes, it doesn't really matter, probably do them last after you've positioned all the mouth bits. So I'll show you when I've glued that onto Monokuma, and then we can make the final sort of pieces like the arms, the legs, the ears, the tummy, and there's also a tail to make. I've glued down all the face details and this is what it's now looking like. So let's move on to making the ears next. So this is one of the ears I've already made in black. As you can see, it's a pretty simple piece. So to start off with, we're just going to do 6 single crochets in a magic circle. Then for round 2, you're going to increase all the way around. That'll get you to 12 single crochets at the end of the round. Round 3, you're going to do 2 single crochet increase and repeat that pattern 3 more times to get you to 16 single crochets at the end of the round. Then for rounds 4 and 5, you're just going to single crochet all the way around. So I'll meet you at the end of round 5. So I got to the end of round 5 and now I'm just going to cut the yarn, leaving a tail for sewing. So now I've got 2 ears, one in black and one in white, and I'm going to sew them to the top of the bear. As you can see, I've sewn down one of the ears now, so I'm just going to start off the other side with you. I'm going to just be whip stitching all the way around, but I'll show you the first few stitches just in case that helps at all. So I'm going to try and position it roughly in line with the other side. And I'm just going to be whip stitching all the way around like this. And just before you get all the way around, you're going to want to add a small amount of stuffing, so I'll meet you at the point where I'm going to do that. I'm just going to add a little bit of stuffing now. So not that much at all really, just a small amount. And I'm just going to carry on sewing all the way around. Both of the ears are now fully sewn down, so I'm just going to feed that yarn tail through and just cut that. So now let's move on to making the arms. Again, I've already made one of the arms in black, so let's make the white one together. So we're going to start off by doing 6 single crochets in a magic circle. Then for round 2, you're going to increase all the way around. Then for rounds 3 to 5, you're just going to single crochet all the way around in each of those 12 single crochets. And I'll meet you at the end of round 5 as we need to add some stuffing at this point. So I got to the end of round 5 and we're actually going to quickly do round 6 together now before we add the stuffing because it'll just be a bit easier. So we're actually going to, for round 6, we're just going to decrease all the way around. That's going to get us down to 6 single crochets at the end of the round. And when we've done maybe 3 of these decreases, that's when I would add the stuffing just so that it stays in there a bit easier. So 1, 2, 3, and then I would just add a little bit of stuffing now, not too much. So this is probably enough. So now we just need to do 3 more decreases to finish the round. Okay, so the remaining rounds for the arm is round 7 to 10, you're just going to single crochet all the way around. Round 11, you're going to do 2 single crochet increase, 2 single crochet increase, and that's going to bring you up to 8 single crochets. And then for rounds 12 and 13, you're just going to single crochet all the way around again. So I'll meet you at the end of round 13. So I got to the end of round 13, and the final thing that we need to do is just slip stitch across to close. That'll be 4 slip stitches. And then I'm just going to cut the yarn, leaving a tail for sewing. And now we're going to sew the arms to either side of the body. I've sewn down the black arm, so again I'm going to do the white one with you. And the only thing that I have already done is I've just placed a pin to remind me where I wanted the arm to finish, just to give me a bit of a guide while I'm sewing it on. So I'm going to place it around here. So I'm just going to be using those 4 slip stitches to help me here, and again I'm just going to be whip stitching across as I normally do. So I'm going to pick this stitch to start with, then I'm going to go into this one, then this one, and then finally this one. I'm just going to check that I'm happy with that positioning before I do the final couple of steps that I want to do. So yeah, I think that's okay. So all I'm going to do, just to help it stick down a bit more, is I'm going to sew down a couple of the stitches at the back and also go back to the front and do a couple there. So I'm going to do this one here, and then I'm going to do probably just one more. Then I'm going to feed my yarn tail back through to the front. And I'm going to sew down a couple of stitches at the front. Just going to check the other side. I think maybe I need to do one more. Yeah, that looks about even with the other side now, so I'm just going to feed that yarn tail through to the back, and then I can just snip that, and those are the arms sewn down. So now let's move on to making the legs. So again, this is the black leg, so I'm going to show you how to do the white one together. So we're going to start off with 8 single crochets in a magic circle. And then I'm going to talk you through the remaining rounds. So for round 1 you're going to do, for round 2 you're going to increase all the way around, so that'll get you to 16 single crochets at the end of the round. Then rounds 3 to 4 you're going to single crochet all the way around. Round 5, 2 single crochet decrease, and repeat that 3 more times to get you to 12 single crochets at the end of the round. Round 6, 4 decreases, then 4 single crochets, and that'll get you to 8 single crochets at the end of the round. Round 7 to 9, single crochet all the way around. Round 10, 3 single crochet increase, and repeat that once more to get you to 10 single crochets at the end of the round. Round 11, single crochet all the way around, and then round 12, 4 single crochet increase, and repeat that once more to get you to 12 single crochets at the end of the round. So I'll meet you at the end of round 12. So I got to the end of round 12, and you just want to add a moderate amount of stuffing, I would say, and then just cut your yarn tail, leaving a tail for sewing. So now let's sew these both to the bottom of the body. Once again, I've already sewn down the black leg, so I'm going to do the white one now. And again, I've just placed some pins because I just wanted to remind myself where I wanted the leg to be placed. Sometimes I don't actually like using pins to actually pin the item down because I find it awkward to sew round it, so sometimes I just use them as a guideline for where I want to sew the leg. So anyway, I'm just going to start doing that now. And yeah, so I'm just going to do that all the way around and I'll meet you when I've finished that. I've just finished sewing that leg down as well, and I'm happy that that looks about even on both sides, so I'm just going to feed that yarn tail through to the back, and then again I can just cut this as usual. So now the next thing that I think we're going to make is the tummy piece. So that's going to be made up of one larger oval piece and then one smaller circle piece, and then we can sew those down. So I've just gone ahead and crocheted the two tummy pieces because they're basically just reusing rounds that we've already done earlier on in the pattern. So for the big piece, it's just the first 5 rounds of the body pieces that we did earlier on, so I'm just going to put those up on screen now, and once you get to the end of round 5 you just need to cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail for sewing, and then I would finish off with a fake single crochet just to make it look a bit neater personally, so that's what I did. And then for this small piece it's literally just 6 single crochets in a magic circle, cut your yarn leaving a bit of a tail for sewing, and then finish off with a fake single crochet. So once you've made those 2 pieces, come back and we will sew the small piece to the bigger piece to start off with. Before you start sewing down the smaller piece, you just want to decide which way round your bigger piece is going to sit on the tummy. So I'm happy that this is the way round that I like it. You could have it this way as well, completely up to you. So I'm choosing this way, and then I'm just going to start sewing this piece down now. And I'm not actually going to be whip stitching this time, so I'm going to go into to start off with one of the smaller pieces stitches, then a stitch from the bigger piece, and then I'm going to go into another stitch from the bigger piece, and then a stitch from the smaller piece, and then a stitch from the smaller piece, and a stitch from the bigger piece, if I can actually do it. Okay, so it's as simple as that. I'm just going to weave my yarn tail through to the back, and now I'm going to get my black embroidery thread because we need to add a cross onto this part. I've got my black embroidery thread. I'm just going to add this cross. I'll just knot off these black ends at the back, and they'll be hidden under the tummy piece, so that's okay. So once you've done that, then you just need to sew this to the front of the body, so I'll show you that in a minute. I've pinned the piece down on the front of the tummy, and I'll just zoom out to show you the positioning. So now I'm just going to whip stitch that down. So you've kind of seen that quite a few times already throughout this video, but I'll just show you a few more stitches. So yeah, I'm just going to do that all the way around and I'll meet you when I've finished that. I finished sewing all the way around, so I'm just going to weave that yarn tail through and I'll just cut that. So now the only thing left to make is the tail, so let's move on to that now. So the tail is the final piece and the only piece where we have to do any colour changing. I'm sorry, I did try and make this pattern with no colour changing at all, but there was no other way really that I found to do the little tail piece. It's only 3 rounds, so it's not too bad. So we're going to just do 2 single crochets in our white colour in a magic circle. Then on the 3rd one, we're going to be pulling through in black to change colour. And then we're going to be doing 3 single crochets in black. Just be careful with all the tails that you'll have at this point. I'm just going to make sure everything's in the right place. So that's 1, 2, and on the 3rd one you're going to want to again pull through in white. And then we're just going to pull the white tail here to close up that, and then we're going to do 3 increases in white and then 3 increases in black. Then for the final round we're just going to do 6 single crochets in white and 6 single crochets in black. And that is it. So I'm just going to cut both of these yarn tails and leave a slight amount for sewing, because I want to sew down the white half with the white tail and the black half with the black, just to make it a bit neater. So I'm just going to position that at the back of Monokuma, and I'm just going to sew that down. I'm probably just going to do it off camera because I'm just going to be doing a whip stitch like I always do, so it's not very exciting. And then once I finish that, I'll show you the final product. Here is my finished Monokuma. I am really happy with him, but I do acknowledge that the colour change line is a little bit slanted. Most of it is covered up by the tummy, but I will make a little disclaimer about that in the beginning of the video, because I know that this isn't necessarily a perfect pattern, but it does avoid having to do any colour changing other than the little bit on the tail. So that is the tail that I just sewed on at the back there. And yeah, that is the finished video, so I hope you guys enjoyed this pattern, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.